Hello?
Hello. How have you been?
I've been well. It's really good to hear from you again.
Thank you. That is very kind. Have you been gaining an understanding of what we talked about last time?
I have, but I've hit a bit of a wall. I've read and reread the section under the initial heading so many times that I've lost count.
And what do you see or understand when you read those sections?
Well, I see power. I see intelligence, genius. I see order and structure, attention to detail. I see perfection, but
Yes, go on. Feel free to say what is in your heart, not only what is on your mind.
well, honestly, seeing it feels cold. Beautiful, but cold. Like seeing a splendid castle and its grounds reflecting the light of a brilliant full moon. And the more I even think that I understand, the more uncertain I'm left feeling by the enormity, the magnitude, the pressure and density of it. Just reading it, I literally feel like it's crushing me. I felt the perfection, the purity of it burned like acid in every one of my blood vessels and through my nerves. It's intimidating to be faced with it. I feel so unworthy to even be considered for this. I can't accept this. I feel so inadequate. I can't accept this.
Please, go on.
I'm afraid of it.
Afraid?
Consciously, I'm afraid to fail, but deep down, I'm afraid to succeed.
Can I ask you why you would be afraid to succeed?
Well, I don't know if I fear the responsibility or if it's the pressure of expectations.
There seems to be more than what you're saying, but you're holding back.
Wow, your insight is scary, but it's correct. Deep down, I'm afraid of success because I've grown accustomed to ineptitude. I've been beat down for so long that I've simply accepted failure as my lot in life. The fantasy of success is amusing to entertain myself with for a time, but reality, what's real to me, makes me emotional just to think about it. I've done terrible things. I've disrespected, hurt people with no regard, just because they had what I wanted or for what I had been convinced I needed.
What were you convinced that you needed so badly that you would hurt others, or it sounds like you're even willing to hurt yourself for?
I don't know what to call it. It's more than loneliness. It's an emptiness. Like a part of me is not simply missing, but a part of me doesn't exist. I don't know what it is that's missing, but every waking moment of my day, I'm aware that it's gone. And taking it to another degree, I'm what's missing. And no one else knows or even seems to care. I wish I could apologize to everyone who I've hurt, everyone who I've used, everyone who I've manipulated. I was desperate. I was desperate for love, but I substituted that for sex. I was desperate for respect, but I settled for fear. I was desperate for acceptance, but I hid away from anyone who tried to care for me. I pushed them away because I didn't deserve to be loved. I couldn't be loved. I was a monster. So, I took from others what I felt I needed to feel whole. And I left them hurting. I left them feeling like I did. After I had taken from them what I wanted, I simply moved on. I never talked to them or saw them again. I moved on. Growing up, in general, I never saw people as people. I saw people as things, commodities to be used and then thrown away when I was finished with them.
You were self-serving?
Well, yes and no. I wasn't any better to myself. I had no regard for my own life and would lay down my life to defend the people who I relied on to define myself by. From the outside, you'd think that I was suicidal. I just hurt so much. I didn't want to kill myself. To me, that seemed like quitting. I can't quit. I can't just give up. I often had fantasies of being beaten to death, you know, like being in a gladiator arena and fighting to the death. Man, I loved the fight. I felt at peace and connected, mind, body, and soul, when I was enraged. That was one of the only times that I felt like I was myself. Being hit and hitting someone was my ultimate satisfaction. Sorry, I'm just rambling on.
You are fine expressing yourself. Believe it or not, you are headed in the right direction. True self-recognition is essential, but you do need to be very wary of self-pity. Self-pity leads either to self-justification or to depression. If it's fine with you, could we talk more about your inheritance?
Yes, please. I need to get out of my own head.
Have you had the opportunity to read over the second title under this section of Genesis?
I did.
And? Any thoughts?
Well, the narrative seemed similar to the initial 7 subsections of the opening section, but it had a different feel to it. It felt new. There were passages in the second section that were similar to the first, but clearly not the same. I wasn't sure if I was reading too much into the words or if something different was actually happening. It didn't feel as heavy or as intimidating as the first section. It felt more like being invited to the grounds of the castle and taken on a personal tour. And the second section is warm.
And what sense did you get from it?
Well, like I said, warmth, but also care, personal attention, sensitivity, and maybe compassion. I guess the one-word answer would be love. I felt love from the passage, but the similarities and the differences between the two passages also left me feeling confused.
To clear up any confusion, let me touch on something that you said. You used the word new. This section is actually new. A new beginning, if you will.
A new inheritance?
No, not a new inheritance. Remember, the entire document is in details your inheritance. What is new is the explanation and the degree to which your inheritance has been afforded to you.
I don't understand what you mean by degree. Is it okay for me to ask you to explain your meaning?
It would be my pleasure. Like I said before, you are intended to understand your inheritance. The only way to come to any level of understanding and to avoid being taken advantage of is to ask questions, whether of yourself or of someone who has more understanding than you happen to have at that particular time. Now, consider this scenario in regard to the term degree. Going to an automobile dealership and purchasing a vehicle versus owning the dealership and purchasing one of the vehicles on your lot versus owning a town and all of its amenities and utilizing your automobile factory to produce vehicles that you sell to others for personal use or to transport goods.
Wow, great example. Degrees. Got it.
To take a step closer to grasping your inheritance, apply your understanding of degrees to your own physical, emotional, and spiritual nature. The second section of the document details your static potential.
Static potential? I haven't heard those two words used together before. How are you using them now?
There are many things that could be said about that phrase, but for now, consider unmerited opportunity as a synonymous phrase. Your regard of the first section's imposing nature is commonplace, but when it's viewed by its proper light, it will be understood to be a lesson.
A lesson? Is it a lesson on how to feel insignificant?
As you've already relayed, it does have that effect when viewed improperly, but the proper light reveals much more.
Okay, I'll accept that. When seen by the proper light, what will the student learn?
First, you will need to acquire the appropriate perspective or state of consciousness. You would need to be placed in a proper classroom. In the proper classroom, you would learn to recognize static potential in all situations. You will come to know the owner and builder of the estate, your benefactor. And, potentially, more importantly, you will come to understand yourself and why this inheritance belongs to you.
That sounds like a very far reach. I could never accomplish something so grand as what is detailed under the first section. How do my inheritance, knowing my benefactor, and understanding myself relate to each other?
By degrees. Answer this for yourself. At what exact point does hot become cold? Does light become dark? Does big become small? Does consciousness or spirit become a unit of energy? Or does energy become flesh? Or is it more true that soft and hard, hot and cold are simply 2 degrees of the same thing? In this perspective, consider the phrase, as above, so below.
Whoa, you just sent chills down my spine. I can literally feel each hair on my body standing upright, like they're charged with energy. Degrees. I do recognize who I am not, but the degree to which I can rise above that is something that I can't see. I can't imagine past who I am.
Yet still, you do have a foundation, and you are on the cusp of comprehending static potential. Which term brings me to another component of receiving your inheritance. The lack thereof precipitated your collective state of ignorance and confusion. But know this, when you are competent enough to understand the truth of your inheritance, you will be liberated. Liberated from the bitter fruit of ignorance, the chains of confusion, and the limitations of self-doubt. In addition to that, the empty space inside of you will be continually filling. Though you may not realize it, you are growing in the sentiment that I alluded to just a moment ago. You've expressed appreciation. Appreciation is critical, and the lack thereof is detrimental because it leads to compromise. The two are closely related, for it will always be the case that you'll be willing to compromise anything that you do not fully appreciate.
All that I can express is appreciation. Thank you for not accepting my attempt to walk away and for continuing to encourage me to learn more.
Honestly, I gave no such encouragement. I only gave you information that assisted you in deciding to investigate further. Sir, you do not see it now, but I assure you, you are the guiding principle of our interactions. Keep the ideas of this conversation in mind when you begin to study the third section of your inheritance. For now, goodbye.